We can push that button.
Hello, HCC Eagles. Thank you all so much for joining us this afternoon. We have a great performance for you today. And just letting you guys know, just remember, it is Hispanic Heritage Month. And so we are celebrating today with music and culture and demonstrations and performances today. So without further ado, I would like to introduce to you Solero Flamenco.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Let us take a moment to introduce ourselves. We are Solero Flamenco, a professional flamenco performing group based in Houston. This afternoon, we have with us Mela Fuentes, al baile and dance. We have Andrés Félix in percussion. We have Jeremías García in la guitarra. And my name is Irma La Paloma, and I will be singing, doing the cante this afternoon. Flamenco is exciting. Flamenco stirs the senses and moves the soul. Let us get right to it, and then we'll talk a little bit more about it, its origins, its components, its history. But let's go to it. We're gonna have a good time. Join us. What is flamenco? Can you hear me okay, by the way?
Yes, we can.
Flamenco is a mixture of musical cultures. Talk about diversity. Flamenco is a unity of many cultures acquired by the gypsies who traveled perhaps from during two major migrations in the early 15th century, starting in the Punjab region in India and Pakistan. So flamenco, to really be concise and sum it all up, is said to have influences of Indo-Pakistani music, Gregorian chant, Sephardic song, Arabic song, the folklore in place in the south of Spain in the early 15th century when the gypsies arrived. With the discovery of the New World, we have influences from the Caribbean, from Cuba, from the New World and its excitement, and all the people that went there and united under the excitement of new land and brought with them their cultures, their musical influences. We have Afro-Cuban influence, you name it. So flamenco truly is an example of diversity and how all of us are related through music. Music is the international language of the world. It needs no translation. We feel music, and that's all we need to do with music is feel it. Music, the argument is always that music is folklore. What is folklore? Folklore is the voice of the people put to rhythm and melody. So flamenco is folklore. It always, folklore, has an important history, story to tell because it is the voice of people. We'd like to talk a little bit about the relationship of the components of flamenco. We have cante, song, which is the reason for flamenco, as it tells the story. We have the guitar that provides the melodic support and rhythmic support as well, because flamenco guitar is percussive as well. To the cante and provides accompaniment. We have the dance, and of course, the dance expresses what the body and the mind feels or feel. And then we have the percussion that is a supportive heartbeat that brings it all together. So each one of the components plays a very important part in a constant and seamless conversation between cante, guitarra, baile, y percusión. Song, guitar, dance, and percussion. Let us talk a little bit after. We do a little bit of silencio y escobilla. Vamos. that means happinesses. These are cantes and bailes that come from Cadiz in the south of Spain, in Andalusia. Alegrías are very expressive, and as in other flamenco rhythms, it has a structure. At the very beginning, we did the opening, we did one letra, one set of lyrics. The lyrics speak of experiences in port cities, by the ocean, where everything is always happier and brighter. It speaks of love, of lost love. It speaks of the way of life in Andalusia in the south of Spain. So the very first little bit that we did for you was the introduction and a letra. What Mela finished dancing right now is the silencio, and Jeremy played in the guitar the silencio. The silencio is the silence, is part of the structure of the Alegrías rhythm. Silencio means silence. It is the time when the dancer and the guitar communicate in a melodic way, also rhythmic, but very light rhythmically, because it's the beauty of the melody and the movement that comes to life in the silencio. After that, Mela did some footwork, and that is the escobilla. Escobilla is a series of, a portion of footwork. Escoba means a broom. And so escobilla is as if you were using a broom because you're making sounds with the floor. Escobilla is very rhythmic. Alegrías are a 12 count compás. Compás is the heartbeat in flamenco. There are 12 counts, there are 8 counts. This one that we just did is a 12 count. So what happens in all of this performance? The seamless conversation between song, guitar, and dance produces this experience. You are also part of the experience because you give us jaleo. Jaleo are vocal interjections of approval, hopefully always of approval. So one of those, and the most famous one, is ole. Ole is theorized to perhaps come from the word Allah, which means God. So ole is reserved for those moments that you really feel, you see, you hear, you experience a joy, you experience approval. So if you want to give us an ole from your home, please do it, because we feel it, even though we may not be able to hear you, we feel it when you say ole. So this accompaniment that takes place in the cuadro is the flamenco performance. Sometimes it is overt, with signals that are given to each other. Sometimes it is innate. Sometimes we feel those signals. But those of us who study and honor and value this discipline of art, we know innately certain things that happen in the structures of each rhythm. Let us give you a little demonstration. People always ask, what exactly is the accompaniment? As opposed to other types of music where the voice follows the rhythmic presentation of an instrument, of a rhythm, in flamenco, it's a little bit the other way around. The guitar follows the voice. Yes, the guitar follows the voice. The guitar also follows the dance. And we are all accompanied by the rhythmic constant support of the cajon. So what is an example of an overt signal that we know from each other? Well, I think the most obvious one is una llamada, a call. It's not using your cell phone, it's using your feet. So when the dancer, and Mela, you can step over here for a second, a la izquierda. So when the dancer is dancing, and we're back here and we're accompanying her, and we see her movements, and we see, before listening to her footwork, we see llamada arms. ¿Cómo son las manos los brazos de una llamada? El cruce, así. When we see that, we know that she might be doing a call, una llamada. But then when we listen to the series of steps or sounds that she makes with her feet, we know she's calling us. She is either going to stop, she wants more lyrics, she wants to do a desplante. She wants to do a subida, which is crescendo in speed. She wants our attention, and we need to accompany her. So can you give us an example of a llamada of 12 counts?
Yes, of course.
So when she finishes those sounds, we know that she's calling us. Can you just do the basic first? Ta 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 tico ta tico 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 ta. Whenever we hear those sounds, we know whether she develops it further in a couple of more musical sentences or rhythmic sentences, we know that she's calling us. So that is an example of a llamada. Another way to communicate is perhaps if she wants more lyrics, she can just do markings. Can you do some markings for us, Mela? Tells the singer she wants lyrics. So I will give her more lyrics at that point. Thank you. So that is marcaje. Another way of asking for more lyrics is intuitively. Perhaps she does un recoge and she looks back at us and that signals to us she wants to dance more lyrics. Can you do un recoge, Mela? Ah! You saw how she looked back at us and her movements were back at us. It's like saying, come with me, give me some more lyrics. So those are just examples of, very few examples of how we communicate in the cuadro, in the flamenco performance. When the singer is singing, there is a mutual respect for each one of the disciplines. When the singer is singing, we don't do super heavy footwork because we want to respect the lyrics. The lyrics, cante is the reason for flamenco, not because I say so, it's the history of the art. So we respect the lyrics by not hitting too hard so that we're able to respect the cantador or the cantadora, the singer. We also must give space to our guitarist. And Mela, if you can join us over here for 1 second. The guitarist needs to have his creative moments called falsetas. Falsetas are melodic interludes of his creation that are part of the entire scene. Can you give us an example of one of your falsetas, Jeremias?
Okay.
Is a short interlude, but it's very much his creative moment. And then we have the rhythmic component and support of the cajon. The cajon is a very interesting instrument. It comes from Peru. It is not one of the original ingredients in flamenco. It is said that it was discovered in the 1970s by Paco de Lucia and Camarón de la Isla, who went to Peru and saw their version of the box drum and said, what wonderful accompaniment that would provide for flamenco. Well, they did something a little bit different. They added guitar chords on the inside to create both the bass and the snare kind of sound. So, Andres, can you give us a little demonstration of what the cajon sounds like? So those are the components of the cuadro. These components are in constant communication and, as in a great conversation, very respectful of each other, very supportive of each other, and allowing each one of the components their creative expression. Do we have any questions so far?
None in the chat so far.
Okay. Well, having said all of that, let us do a little bit more, and then we'll talk a little more. Let's get to it, because the joy is in sharing it with you. Oye. Quiera y no quisiera, hay dos cositas diferentes. Quisiera que me quisieran y no quisiera quererme. No, caray, 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 mire usted que bien, para que me caí, que la hambre la vamos a sentir. Que mire usted que gracia, que mire usted que gracia, que mire usted que gracia que tiene este país. And that is the final section of the Alegrías. What we just did is called Bulerias De Cadiz. Cadiz, again, is the port city in Andalusia where these rhythms are said to come from. So we did Bulerias De Cadiz, we did Remate and Ida. And that is pretty much the structure of Alegrías. Sería bueno hacerlo todo en un viaje. Oh my God. Well, any questions so far?
No, not yet. But great, but a lot of comments about how everything is so great.
Okay, thank you, thank you. And we take great pride in going to the roots of the art. As in any art form, it is important to know the roots so that then you can enjoy the present. As we said before, folklore has its origin and characteristics. We must visit that before we can see its evolution and enjoy it in the present. Because folklore is ever changing, life is ever changing, and our expressions are ever changing. So it's important to know the root and refresh those roots often, visit them often, so that we can maintain the characteristics that make each genre singular in the world. But I remind you that this music has so many influences from different cultures that it is truly beautiful to visit with our friends, perhaps from India, who hear their music here, our friends from the Arabic world that hear their music here, to visit our friends from Africa that hear the rhythms in here. One of those particular rhythms that is very much attributed to have influences from Afro-Cuban rhythms is the tangos. Tangos are an 8 count as opposed to the ones that we just did that are a 12 count. Tangos are an 8 count, and it is music that came from the old continent to the new continent and acquired some of the flavors in the Caribbean, particularly in Cuba. And let's do a little bit of tangos and see if you can hear some of that wonderful ingredient that tangos have. Going. sabio me leyó el trino y al escucharlo temblé. Qué cosa que me diría mamá, que aborrecí tu querer, que aborrecí tu querer, no como te quería. La que quiera madroño, de la tierra, ya yo le morena, de la tierra. Porque te estás secando tu madroñera, ya yo le morena, tu madroñera. A ver, es un piecito bueno. ¡Ay! Y lloro por ti, vida mía, llorando, llorando, llorando por ti, vida mía, llorando, llorando, llorando por ti, vida mía. So those were tangos, flamencos. They were improvised. We had no idea what we were doing, but that is the way in flamenco. That is the original form of flamenco. It's based on improvisation. And yes, what is improvisation? We are often asked. Improvisation is not just moving erratically how you feel. Improvisation in an art form means that you have a few things in your pocket that you know how to do and you know how to do well. And you know exactly when to pull them out at the precise moment and execute them precisely in conjunction with the other components. That is improvisation in many art forms. In order to preserve the characteristic that makes that genre singular and knowable, we need identifiable, we need to preserve the characteristics. So improvisation is having your pocket with those wonderful things that you know just when and how to execute. So that is part of the flamenco cuadro. We thrive for that. And having said that, every performance is a little bit different because sometimes we don't know exactly where we're going. And that is the challenge. It's a new canvas each time when it's done under improvisation. Today, because flamenco has developed into a higher art, and we see it in the best stages in the world, and it has become a very complex art. It is complex folklore, but it has become an art form that has traveled the world over. We see more choreography, and we see more formal study, if you will, in conservatories, in music schools, and all over the world. And thus, we're able to do choreographies that really play on sound, counter sound, double sound, and on syncopations, on things. But the original form of flamenco in its full folklore is improvisational. And that is and remains a wonderful joy in flamenco for the audience, for the people, and for all of us who partake in this art.
And I think it's important to know, like, when she's talking about the improvisation, it's also in the letra or the lyrics that she's singing, because a lot of people don't know that when she sings, it's not like a song from start to finish. She can take different verses of poetry, and plug them in with those melodies. But it's when she's saying right now in the tangos, it was not a set thing from start to finish that this is what she was going to sing. So I think that's important to note as well.
Because flamenco was passed from generation to generation through oral history, you have verses that sometimes they're able to trace to a family, to a town. You also have influences from poetic movements that bring in some of the lyrics. For example, a lot of letra from the poet Federico Garcia Lorca, who actually did a wonderful thing in his time in 1932. He prepared a collection. He was also a pianist, a musician, and he prepared a collection of popular antique songs. These are songs that he rescued from the people and recorded them. Some of us think that he perhaps took some artistic liberties here and there, but nonetheless, he did a great favor because he preserved musically and in annotation and musical annotation, songs that would have perhaps vanished with generations past. So yes, flamenco, the lyrics, you can improvise. I could come up with my own lyrics, but most of the lyrics center on love, on the sense of being, los sentidos, that sense of existing, loving the earth around you, loving your people. Love of mother is also very much in the lyrics. Family is very strong in flamenco. And of course, lost love, which is the theme all over the world. But yes, the lyrics are very interesting because it's not, unless we do sevillanas, which we're going to visit shortly, or unless we do fandangos, or well, not even fandangos, but unless we do sevillanas, we are talking about verses that we incorporate into the different rhythms. They are not necessarily a whole song that we sing. There are verses that come to mind, to the singer's mind. And that's why the guitarist has a very tough job, because he needs to follow the singer and he needs to follow the dancer. And that's tough because you have to know his discipline, he has to know his discipline, and he also needs to know how to accompany each singer, because we all sing differently, we all breathe differently, and he very much has to be on his toes and know what he needs to do with an accompanying harmony. The singer sings the melody, we all keep the rhythm, and he plays an accompanying harmony to enhance the song. Same thing with the dancer. We all need to accompany the dancer. And again, it's based on a wonderful conversation, a musical conversation based on respect and supporting each other, highlighting each other, and we each have a moment of glory. Would you like to do some sevillanas?
Sure.
We'd like to do now, sevillanas are very popular because they are the party song where everyone joins in unison. Bulerias are the ultimate party song in Andalusia, but sevillanas are very much, even ceremonious, they're folk song with a flamenco flair, but very much part of a center stage in Andalusia. Vamos por sevillana. Vamos ahí. Vamos a Sevilla, mi arma, vamos ahí. Y a la puerta de Toledo, Madrid, le tengo celo. Le tengo celo. Y a la puerta de Toledo, Madrid, le tengo celo. Y a la puerta de Toledo, Madrid, le tengo celo. Le tengo celo, porque te encuentra con otra el hombre que yo más quiero. Porque te encuentra con otra el hombre que yo más quiero. Y en el mismo sitio se taparía, porque paraguas Marey se taparía. Y en el mismo sitio, y a la misma hora, y a la misma hora, te estabas dejando con otra persona. Y en esta vida se pagan todas las cosas. Todas las cosas. En esta vida se pagan todas las cosas. En esta vida se pagan todas las cosas. Todas las cosas. También se mueren las flores, Marey, que son hermosas. También se mueren las flores, Marey, que son hermosas. Y en el mismo sitio, y a la misma hora, y a la misma hora, dicen que había muerto, triste, enferma y sola. Bueno, we'd like to hear from you. Do you have any questions, any observations that you would like to share with us?
We do have some questions in the chat. We have a student that asked, are these dances generally performed in celebration of festivals or specific ceremonies?
These dances first were born of a need to express. So their origin was when people of different origins in the south of Spain during the Inquisition were ousted for not being Christian. It's part of history, it happened. They gathered, they hid in the swamps and the caves, and they told each other their happinesses and their sorrows. From that came the dance, not as we see it today with shoes on, but bare feet, barefoot, using tongue clicks, my accent. Pitos, palmas, slaps, nudillos on the table, they accompanied themselves. So first it was a need to express. As it became more, as the gypsies integrated into society in the south of Spain, they began performing for each other, for important people that would retribute them with pay, and then eventually in the courts as well, and eventually in the café cantantes during flamenco's golden era. So it became very popular to go see this mysterious art of the gypsies, and it became part of life in Andalusia, especially in Andalusia. And so yes, very much in tablaos. Tablaos are cafes, you could say, or venues in the south of Spain, all over Spain really, where people go to see a flamenco performance and to listen, because listening is very important in flamenco. Flamenco is full of silence, but you must be silent to hear it. And that is what creates that tension that gives the impression of holding back time, or perhaps marking everything in the compás, is those silences that create that beautiful tension that are so alluring and so mysterious at times and give way to expression. So yes, in theaters, they have festivals in Spain, they have contests, song, concurso del cante, concurso de baile, festivales de guitarra, concursos de guitarra, how do you say concurso?
Competitions.
Competitions. And there are so many talented people in Spain and abroad that make this art form their life, their lives. They dedicate a whole lifetime to this because it's very wonderful. It becomes part of your essence. It becomes part of every celebration, and you see it in Spain everywhere, in homes, in street performers. You go to La Plaza de España in Sevilla, and you see performers, and they're wonderful. They're wonderful, and they're celebrating their folklore. So I would say, yes, it is very much part of celebrations, but it is also respected as the art form par excellence in the south of Spain. Let's not forget that Spain has 17 different regions, 2 overseas, that each have their folklore their history, their literature, their art forms. Andalusia is in the south and is one of those regions. But because this art form is so passionate and so alluring, perhaps because of its cultural components, it has traveled the world over and transgressed time and frontiers. And that's why we're here today in Houston, performing flamenco for you.
Another question is, they would like to know like your other performances in Houston. So they actually want to see you guys live.
Okay.
Well, thank you, that's wonderful. If you follow us on Facebook, we are Solero Flamenco, S-O-L-E-R-O, Solero Flamenco, F-L-A-M-E-N-C-O. Oftentimes people confuse flamenco and flamingo. Flamingo is a bird. Flamenco is, remember, I always say, remember there are men in flamenco as well, flamenco. But Solero Flamenco is the name of our group. We are currently performing in different venues in Houston. You can find our performance calendar at soleroflamenco.com. We're also doing candlelight concerts, and we're happy to report that right now ours is the top seller in Houston. So if you'd like to join us there, go to feverup.com. But visit us at soleroflamenco.com and you'll see our performance calendar. And if you do make it out, come and say hello. We love to connect with people and we love to hear from you.
I think those were all the questions. Everyone is saying how they really enjoy the performance, that it's amazing, great music. It was a great break to their lunch break. So they had lunch and a bit of entertainment. So everybody has thoroughly enjoyed you guys.
Thank you very much. It is our joy and honor to share this art that we love with you. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to do so, HCC.
Perfect. I think those were all the questions.
Do we have any time left?
Yes, we do. We actually have a few minutes left. We have about maybe 10 minutes left.
Okay,
Okay,
una
great.
María, entonces, o
Okay, ¿la cantamos o la...?
okay.
Let's take a little bit of Bulerias. Bulerias are very fast, but they're very intricate in flamenco, in the flamenco repertoire. They are the ending song in every performance, you could say. But let's go un poquito, let's sing a little bit to love. Vamos ahí. Porque no tenía, ay, 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 Yo curiao de calle, yo curiao de calle, ya que niña, ama bonita, que si me la diera su madre. Y a mí me daba y me daba. Y a mí me daba y me daba, que tentaciones de locura, que cuando de ti me acordaba. Papá. Y ay, pobrecita la amapola. Ay, pobrecita la amapola, que no tiene padre ni madre, que crían en la amapola. Que no tiene padre ni madre, que crían en la amapola. Y está loco por saber, ay, está loco por saber, ay, si el clave te hace bonita, o tú bonita el clave. Si el clave te hace bonita, o tú bonita el clave. ¡Andrea! Te quiero yo, aquí a la madre que te parió, aquí a la madre que te parió. Ay, que te quiero, tú no lo sabes, tienes la culpa de todo mi madre, la culpa tienes de todo mi madre. ¡Eso! ¡Ay, sí! Hola. Ole. Once again, Mela Fuente al baile. Andrés Félix en la percusión. Carolina García en la guitarra. Y esta servidora, Irma La Paloma en el cante. Solero Flamenco, thank you, Houston Community College, for having us this afternoon. Ole con ole, arroz con frijoles.
Thank you guys so very, very much. We truly appreciate this wonderful performance that you guys did with us. Again, we wish we could have had it in person, but this was just as great. HCC Eagles, thank you guys so very, very much for joining us today for our lunchtime performance from Solero Flamenco. Please visit them at soleroflamenco.com for their schedule. And again, we actually hope you guys join us for our future events. Always check out hccs.presence.io for more information on how to connect with student life. You guys have a great evening. Thank you.
Gracias. Thank you.
Bye.